hello, hello. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. We have Dr. Donna Galante,
Hi.
Dr. Regina Blevins, and Dr. Esther Feldman. So thank you all for joining us today. So cheers to a little female orthodontic happy hour.
Yeah, our schedules were so busy. It was hard to get time to do this.
Right.
I second that.
So how are all of you guys doing a few weeks into our stay-at-home, our shelter-in-place? How are you guys coping? How are you managing? Donna, you can go first. You started laughing.
Oh, gosh, it takes every ounce of energy to kind of just kind of stay focused and not get too crazy about it. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it came on so suddenly, and you always think you'll be prepared for stuff like this, but and in some ways we kind of are prepared, because the way we practice, because we're mostly Invisalign and everybody's on dental monitoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we still have patients, brackets and wires, and I'd say the thing that's the worst part about the deal is that you don't have any new patients coming in. So production is just going to be a goose egg.
Definitely.
And having been through 2008, 2009, and people who've ever heard me lecture, I talk about that a lot as to the reason we switched to Invisalign. It was bad back then. Wow. This is like, just when you think it can't get any worse. So
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. How are Dr. Feldman, Dr. Blevins, how are the two of you coping with all of this?
Well, I can't emphasize enough how much I realize I like practicing. I like going to work.
Yeah.
I like working with my team. I like helping my patients. It sounds so corny to say it, but it really does sort of fulfill that nurturing urge that you have and that leadership, gene that you had to try to express, and going from, warp speed to zero so quickly. And you have things in place if it were a health issue or an accident issue, but these aren't any of those things. And it's not like we have that to manage, which I'm sure we'd put a different hat on and we'd try to figure out how to manage it. But this is so out of our control. We just kind of sit back and listen to the news every day, wondering if they're going to extend the time that we can't be in practice. What can we do? I can reiterate what Donna said. Thank goodness my practice is about 85% Invisalign, and that my patients are already, quite a few of them are on virtual care. For the most part, that was easy. But like she said, we're not growing anymore. We're not bringing any new patients, and we still got bills to pay. So that is somewhat stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine. How about you, Dr. Feldman?
I look up to Donna and Regina, who have these bigger practices. I've been in practice, under 3 years now. So my practice finally caught really great momentum. We had new starts every day, new patients on the schedule, and boom, pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting, taking it day by day. I think what's really important is staying in touch with the staff, keeping them motivated, letting them know that I'm here for them, I'm going through the same thing they are, and then keeping in communication with the patients as well, mailing out tons of Invisalign aligners to patients, rubber bands, just whatever they need, making sure that they know that I'm doing everything in my power to not keep them at a standstill, to help them progress, and being available for FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it is so that they can have access to me during this time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So what is one thing that each of you are doing every day to stay empowered?
Well, I'd say For me, exercise, it's kind of been nice to get back into exercising on a regular basis. So, just getting on my bike or either outside or in my garage, because I have like a stationary thing that I can use. And then, so that's really helpful for my mental status, right? Because I just wear myself out on the bike and then I'm not so frazzled by all of this. And then,
Right.
yeah, I mean, you just feel like Regina said, I mean, you just feel so like out of control with this thing. And like every day it's a new day. So you can't even like,
You can't make a plan.
yeah, like
Yeah.
we're rescheduling patients into
Too many
May,
unknowns.
and I'm praying that we don't have to call them back in May and then, move them to June, for goodness sakes. Right.
Exactly.
So, I mean, and so anyway, that's kind of what we're doing. We have one thing that we are doing that I can't tell you if it's effective. Maybe next week, if we get together, I'll have some data on it.
Perfect.
But we decided today, my TCs, we have a pending list. Like you have pending patients, right, that came in, got scanned, because every patient gets scanned. That's another thing I got to say we started to do about a year ago, and that's going to pay off, I'm hoping, because we already have all the records. They came in for the new consult, they got scanned, they never started for whatever reason. And granted, nobody's probably that excited right now to start, right? So we're offering like a super sweet deal to get started, so as we can do the contract over the phone, they physically don't have to come back in, and then offer them this huge incentive financially, and when their first payment would happen. I mean, it's like just offering them something they can't resist. And like, for example, on some of the adult patients, like normally with the adult patients, we throw in the VPRO 5 as part of their treatment, right? So, making sure that we're telling them that this is an extra bonus thing that we're adding.
Yep.
Plus we're giving them a discount. Plus they don't have to put any money down. Plus their first payment isn't due until June, right? So all these kinds of incentives to maybe get a few starts, because otherwise, I mean, it'll be like a goose egg in April, which,
Right.
that even in the 2009, 2008 debacle, I mean, we still had starts. It wasn't a lot,
Hello.
but it wasn't zero, right?
Yeah.
We're doing something very, very similar. A pending list, going through that, and we've had a few people say yes. I mean, it's not a high percentage,
No.
but one is twice as many as zero.
Right. Yeah. That's what I told my staff. I said, heck, I mean, if we got 10 starts out of it for all of our locations, I'd be pretty happy with that. Because it'd all be Invisalign. I just do, by the time the aligners come in, it's going to be May anyway. And I'm just praying that this thing is pretty much a done deal.
Well, are you guys also, see, we had a bunch of people in queue that had been scanned, had committed, but we hadn't finished their CLIN checks. All of a sudden, we're not putting any attachments on or any IPR for like 12 weeks.
Yep.
So it's really changing the protocols of what we do.
I find it interesting, though, that a lot of patients right now, at least in my practice in California, are jumping on. Like, I'm getting emails from patients that I thought for sure hadn't committed. We'd scanned them, we'd taken records, and they're like, I've had time to really think about it, and now I really want to do it. Is there any way I can get started so I can get used to my aligners while I'm sheltering in place? I'm like, actually, there is. And doing the contracts over the phone and, DocuSign and stuff like that, and then just mailing them the vPro, their aligners, doing a Zoom intro appointment to go over instructions and stuff like that. But anything to get a new start, anything to keep the ball rolling.
Well, we had done like a new patient delivery video where when they came in to get their aligners, they would watch on a iPad the new patient video that would say, how to insert them and take them out and how to clean them and how to use the vPro and all those things. And we're thinking now, oh my gosh, thank goodness we have these tools that we already fabricated, because when
useful.
they get them at home, and we've done a combination of mailing them, and the ones that are close enough, I have a staff member and myself, and now I don't even think we can do that, but last week and the week before, we could drive them and drop them at the door, and then they could watch the video and then send us photos to assess the fit and things like that. But Donna and Esther and I are a little ahead of the game compared to the majority of orthos out there that haven't really embraced digital technology.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it would be like right now if you had a completely bracket and wire practice. And
Nightmare.
So what would you say to somebody who does have a, let's say, 85% practice of brackets and wires? What would you say to them right now?
I would say, hope to God you don't have a lot of reverse curve, night and all wires in.
Say good luck. Good luck.
Some of these active appliances that need to be monitored so closely, I wouldn't be able to sleep.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Regina. I'd be really worried. So yeah, I think that those doctors really need to kind of set up some sort of virtual appointment system. Like we're not doing that because we use dental monitoring. So the patients are just doing their weekly at-home check-ins anyway. But if I had patients that, I was 85% brackets and wires, and I knew specific patients had certain types of appliances in or wires in, I'd be like wanting to make sure that we did a virtual, because those things can go south fast.
And some of the practices, they don't have even digital charts. So I don't know how you run a report to pull out
Wow.
that are in those, I was thinking about it the other day, and
I never thought of that.
could not imagine that.
That's a good point. That one. But yeah, you got to get really creative in this environment and think out of the box. But I'd say, being a digital practice already, like all of us really are, it is definitely helpful as far as the day-to-day care of the patient, right? Because I don't feel that nervous because they're doing their scans. Although it's interesting, today I had a conference call with my dental monitoring manager, and he was telling me that about 50% of the patients all of a sudden have stopped doing their scans. And normally we have a fallout rate of about 10%. Mm-hmm. So I said to him, well, what's going on? I mean, haven't you been, texting them, blah, 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 because he's working at home managing it. And he goes, yeah, I've been texting them. Some of them I called. And he goes, I don't know what's going on. So he called dental monitoring, and we talked to our local rep. And I guess this is becoming an issue for them. I mean, like she said, yeah, we've been having this problem, and it's patients are all of a sudden just checking out of their weekly scans. So I think that's an interesting thing. So I don't know if people are just, watching too much TV and playing too many video games.
Watching too much Tiger King, maybe?
Tiger King. Good.
Or they're sick and they don't feel up to it.
Maybe, right? Or maybe it's just because it's so distracting to be like not on a typical schedule, right?
Yeah.
Here's another
Crazy
question.
how quickly the day goes by.
Right?
Even though I feel like I'm not that productive.
Oh God, I feel the same way.
I'm like, how is it 7 o'clock? How is it? I don't know how it happens. Where did the time go?
I know.
Yeah. Well,
answering emails takes 2-3 hours in the morning.
They 100% do.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys when we got on the meeting tonight is, I've been lucky. I haven't had any patient actually that I know of that has been sick. And, in the Twin Cities area here, our infection rate is pretty low because, we're Midwest Minnesotans that follow the rules. So we're not getting anywhere near each other. But what if one of our aligner patients did contact us and say that they were sick? How are you recommending to disinfect your aligners? And how is there a concern about that?
I think there is definitely a concern about that. I've had one patient contact me who's positive for coronavirus, told me he's day 9. He's not an aligner patient. He's actually in lingual braces. He's an incognito. He had called me 2 weeks ago and said, oh, I think there's a little bit of a pokey wire. I thought it's really not an emergency. Let's just leave it and see how it goes. And he was infected. So I'm really grateful that I didn't go into the office. But if it was aligners, what I've been reading is that Colgate with hydrogen peroxide, that mouthwash, is what does kill it. In the weeks before the shelter in place, we were making every patient rinse with chlorhexidine. Turns out that the hydrogen peroxide is actually much more active at killing the virus versus chlorhexidine. So I would just push all the patients that, were worried or had someone around them that was infected to buy that. I think it's Colgate Optic White. I have it in an email, and that supposedly disinfects and gets rid of it.
That's great.
I mean, right now we tell everybody just use hydrogen peroxide to.
Yeah. That's what my go-to was, just baking soda and hydrogen peroxide and clean.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to know that they can buy a pre-made mix.
Yeah.
If they're able to get to the store.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that's great information to share. And Donna, you were kind of leading me into this, with your patients who are using vPro. I know that it sounds like there's been some struggles with the dental monitoring and having them using their scan box and taking their scans. But with your patients, and this is for all of you who are using vPro, are you noticing a difference in their ability to stay on track? Is it too early to tell? What are you guys kind of seeing with that for some of your patients?
I don't know. It's a good question, because I mean, the vPro patients are also dental monitoring patients, right? So, it's probably too early to tell. I can't say that. I know that one thing, this one employee of mine, I mean, he's still working part-time because he's in charge of the dental monitoring, and we're in decent daily communication. And he informed me today he did notice it starting to drop off last week. So I do think that if that's true, then probably the use of the vPro may drop off too. I don't know. It'll be interesting to kind of see how this shakes out.
I did have one patient contact me because they were actually done with the liners and were wearing the retainers. And they had been remiss in wearing them and noticed that they couldn't get them fully seated. So it was really nice for them to have a vPro on hand.
Oh, yeah.
And they were able to get that retainer to seat again. But with people having so much on their minds, I think that we might see a lot of that, where when we get back into the office, they're contacting us because they can't get their aligners all the way in, or their retainers aren't fitting as well as they used to. And the vPro actually gives them a tool that they can massage those aligners or retainers back to place. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's a great way. Do you think that you'll push out retention checks for your vPro patients once you do get back to clinic, once we are in our new normal, since the AAO is recommending less patients at a time, to try to push some of those out a little further so that you don't have as many retention and non-necessary appointments so early?
I'm definitely going to let my retainer patients know about continuing to use their vPro, because the paradoxical effect of having the increased bone density and the less relapse, I think they need to be made keenly aware of that, because I don't like to do bonded retainers, because they're an emergency nightmare coming loose and things like that. And if I can get more stability with them using their vPro, I think patients would embrace doing that. If you could give them a rationale, like their teeth are going to be more stable.
Yeah.
I agree with Regina on this. That's what we tell our patients, the same exact thing. Yep. And
my biggest concern,
Go ahead,
my
Esther.
biggest concern about going back is that, OSHA supposedly is going through redoing a lot of the PPE, and what our norms are going to be totally different when we go back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think things will just go back to normal right away. There are so many uncertainties right now. And so the retention patients, things that are less urgent, that again, 100% of my patients get the vPro. So I'm less concerned for those patients because I have reinforced the retention in the emails that I've been sending the patients. I give instructions for patients at every level, whether they're in Invisalign, whether they're in braces, an expander, retainers, and what they should be doing. So the VPRO's been, emphasized a lot in terms of using that to give me the peace of mind that things are going to stay on course.
Awesome. Good.
I have no idea what kind of personal protective equipment that we're going to be required to provide for ourselves and our staff.
Yeah.
I have one office that's open bay. The other two have dividers, but the open bay office, I'm not sure I'm six feet away, from one patient to the next. So the capacity of what we typically see with what we're going to be able to see might be hard to juggle.
Yeah.
Definitely. So let's talk financial planning for a second. Regina, we're experiencing, as we've already said, a widespread economic impact across the globe, and obviously throughout all of your practices. We've seen the small business loans, we've seen other provisions released in the CARES Act. There's the economic injury disaster loans, there's the Paycheck Protection Program. What steps are you guys taking specifically to keep your practices running? Have you looked into these? What do you guys think about all of that?
We applied today for the that loan,
PPP.
whatever that loan is that you can get to cover your payroll and your mortgage.
Yeah, the way you say that, my question is, does anybody understand what they are or what they?
I was going to say, there's a lot of inconsistencies. Did you see that email from the ADA saying that you can't apply for both anymore? That they were lobbying the government that small businesses, specifically dentistry, should be allowed to apply for both. So you can't qualify for the SBA EIDL loan and the PPP at the same time. There was conflicting information about that. It was the ADA's email was the only place I saw that you couldn't apply to both, which was odd, but they keep changing the rules, right? At first it was 10 years, then it was 2 years to pay it back. It has to be 75% towards your payroll, 25% can be towards rent and other business expenses, and you have 8 weeks from the day it funds to use it. Otherwise, it converts into a loan that has to be paid back. I think it started at 0.5%. They changed it to 1%, and you have 2 years to pay it back.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Our payroll company helped. They gave us the number that we would need for the payroll part of it. So they gave us that. So that was really helpful, right? Mm-hmm. They figured that out. And then, because there was some formula you had to use for the payroll amount.
And some question about whether you include your payroll taxes or you don't include your payroll taxes. And
they said state and not federal, but then they said federal, and I don't know.
The funny thing is I don't even think that the people managing it really know what's going on. So it's kind of like,
they released it so quickly that they keep changing it. They keep reviewing it and they keep changing it. So, you apply with one number and then, the bank's going to ask for all the documentation and it might be another number. And supposedly all of these banks aren't ready to fund these loans. They're so inundated with these applications that it's going to be a while, I think, before we get anything.
Well, we had another issue, 50 employees or less, or 50 employees or more. Well, we have about 58, okay? But is that before we furloughed people, or does that count them of who we've left on staff full time? And that was a big unknown too. Our accountant is trying to figure it all out so we can get the accurate data.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to navigate. There is so much conflicting information, and Esther, just as you said, it does seem like they're changing it every single day. So hopefully we get some good that comes out of it. But are there any webinars, podcasts. Oh, sorry, Regina, go ahead.
One thing we did at our different locations was talk to the landlords, and most of them have been pretty good about deferring rent for a month and then tacking it in at the end of the lease. I've got to say, I'm really thankful for how flexible they've been with some of that.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
I reached out to my landlord. They required so much information, both from me and my business, because I'm the 100% owner. I mean, I was sending personal financials to them. They wanted everything for me. And then they agreed to defer me a month, but they asked me to pay both in May. And if the situation is as it is, then they'd reevaluate come May.
Oh, that's a little hard line.
Wow.
Yeah.
So not as helpful, but I guess it's something.
Yep.
You know, some people aren't getting that and getting pushed about late fees, you know, so because it's a trickle down, right? Like some of these landlords have to pay their mortgage and their lenders are breathing down their necks. So it's hard to really.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm not really worried much about April or May. It's June that scares the heck out of me because we still have patients on auto pays and things like that. So people are still somewhat paying. But like Donna said, with no starts in April, when that first typical insurance check comes or their first monthly payment is due of all those starts that we would have had down payments for and things like that, that just isn't going to happen. And that's when it's going to really sting.
Oh yeah. I think it's going to be a rough rest of the year because I think that it doesn't just recover overnight. You just don't all of a sudden people, beating down your doors to come back in because people have been,
bills too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Everyone's affected, and how many people are going to prioritize elective? Well, I don't think it's elective, but how many people are prioritizing orthodontics right now?
Right.
If they're out of a job and collecting unemployment and fighting to pay their personal rent, I think if they were on the fence of starting, they might hesitate for a little bit until they recover.
Oh yeah, I think so. I do. I think orthodontics gets hit probably a little bit more than say even general dentistry during an economic downturn, right?
Yeah, there's more that can be classified as an emergency, I would think, from the general dentistry side. But so, I mean, what podcasts, webinars, digital resources are you guys turning to for this business guidance, for even personal or professional growth during this time? Anything sticking out?
I've listened to the CDA, so the California Dental Association has had some webinars where they had an attorney that went over some of these loans that it was helpful, but then things changed. So it was hard to keep up with all the changes. I'm lucky because my husband is in the restaurant business and he has 32 restaurants, and he's keeping me informed with his legal team on all of these changes as they come in. But I mean, I would have never known which tax to add into my payroll when multiplying by 2.5 to find out what my number was for the PPP loan. Like, you can look in 10 different places and you could get 10 different answers. So I think that the hard thing with these webinars is that you'll listen and you'll take notes and you'll be really attentive, and then all of a sudden everything changes.
Yeah.
So it seems right now there's a lot of inconsistency. So
there's probably 3 or 4 that I've been kind of keeping track of. New patient group is one, and they've been giving some good advice on trying to, continue your marketing and the virtual exams and keeping the culture of your office a positive culture. So that's been one that I've been part of. The Orthopreneurs is another good one, mostly upbeat and pretty positive. The Aligner Insider with Dr. Glazer. Some of his webinars with the dental monitoring and stuff have been really helpful to watch.
Great.
I don't know. Those are probably the 3 or 4. The faculty one, the Align faculty the global one, where all our friends that teach, in Europe and Asia are part of that. That's been good to keep track. And I hear a lot of news, not from the media, but from people that are actually living there about what they're going through and whatnot as well.
Awesome.
Just
Good.
on
Those are some
threads
great
with a
tips.
bunch of orthodontists. I'm originally Canadian, so I'm on a thread with all my Canadian mentors. There was an Italian orthodontist on our thread. I mean, she was telling us, leave your shoes outside. I mean, obviously Italy had a really hard time, but she was saying how they're saying in Italy they're not going to get back to work before October.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So it's interesting to keep up by seeing what else is going on around the world.
It can also be.
Pardon?
It can also be depressing.
Yes, it could be. It is depressing. I mean, if you look at the news, it's depressing. And every time there's a press conference and Governor Newsom speaks, I mean, Donna, you're in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he said, expect it to be the shelter in place is until May 1st, but he said, expect it to be until June at the least. It hasn't been mandated yet, but he gave the heads up. It's probably going to go another month. And my mom's an epidemiologist back in Canada, and she's like, this isn't looking good for anyone. But, they say that there's a first wave, then there's a lull, and then there's a second wave. So to brace yourself to be out of work for a while.
Yeah.
So this is probably this stimulus package is probably stimulus 1. There's probably going to be stimulus 2, stimulus 3, stimulus 4. So lots of webinars for us to watch while we're at home.
Exactly. Donna, do you have any specific resources that you've been loving?
Honestly, I've kind of stayed away from all the dental stuff. I don't watch the news. I don't listen to the CDA or the ADA or the AAO. Because I honestly don't feel like they really have done anything to help us. But that's a whole nother topic of conversation that we can have on the side.
Yes.
I could go off on a rant about it, but I won't. So I listen to business podcasts of people who are not in the dental field, and I find that, or I listen to health podcasts, because no one ever talks about what you can do to stay healthy, boost your immune system, keep yourself more. I listen to this one podcast called Bulletproof. How can you keep yourself bulletproof so you don't get sick? And the question I ask after 35 years of practice, I've never had a flu shot, and I've never missed a day of work. And I have to say that the only thing I ever did get was on a freaking plane ride, excuse my French, last year, and somebody was coughing all over me on a flight, and I did get sick, and that was probably the first time I'd really been sick in probably a decade.
Wow.
But so I think, as depressing as all of this is, I find it very frustrating, because I think there's nothing, it's all negative, negative, negative. Stay in, stay home, wear a mask, don't do this, don't do that. Well, what about telling people what they can do to make themselves healthier? What can they do there's just so much that we can do. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I wanted to ask you too, do you guys have business interruption insurance?
No.
Me neither. I was wondering, my landlord asked me if I did, and it was never required, and it wasn't part of the package when I was signing up. But a lot of people are saying, it usually doesn't cover pandemics, but it's fighting the insurance companies.
It doesn't. So
it doesn't matter.
It wouldn't have done anything for you, right?
Right.
So you're kind of just, stuck anyway. So
Got
the
it.
stimulus package could be helpful, but at the end of the day, I just feel really bad. I feel really bad. I had a furlough employees that have been with me 20 plus years. It's just it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Yeah. And anyway, so I stay away from the dental stuff. I stay away from the news. I try to keep my mind focused on what I can do. What can I do? What can we do? And getting a lot of exercise. So I'm going to be in the best shape if we are out of work until June 1st. Oh my gosh. I may not come back. I may just become a yoga instructor. I'm just warning you. Doing my daily yoga.
I think that's great. And I'm going to task you.
Or a spin class specialist. I'm going to be either way. I think I have another either way. So that could be my new career, yoga and or spin, or maybe both.
There you go. And you could even do it virtually.
I knew, yes, maybe, what happened, a middle-aged woman doing spin classes and yoga. It'll be kind of a new podcast or a new YouTube video.
It'll be perfect. Well, I'm going to task you. So when we get together next week for our happy hour, I want you to bring some of those tips from that Bulletproof podcast of what we can do to stay a little healthier.
It's a good one.
You again for those.
Radio. Bulletproof.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
He just did a whole podcast on what you could do to stay healthy. I mean, he just outlines it very clearly with an MD. I mean, it's not like some just Joe Schmo. It's like a real person, like a real medical doctor.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. And it's, that kind of leads me into, I was just going to ask you guys, my next question for you is, as business owners, wives, mothers, sisters, daughters, you guys have a lot on your shoulders. So, what are you doing to de-stress, to stay positive? Donna, it sounds like definitely hitting the yoga and the spin bike, focusing on what you can do. How about, Regina, Esther, what are you guys doing to stay positive in this time?
I'm doing a lot of prenatal yoga. So similar to Donna, I'm stretching a lot. I'm taking walks around the neighborhood, seeing things that I've never, our heads are always down. We're always on our phones. We're always on our computers. We're always running from one place to the next. I'm trying to take advantage of, seeing what's around me when I'm walking and taking my time. I'm reading a lot. I'm reading both baby books, business books, fiction, things that I haven't had the chance to do in a long time. So I'm trying to be productive and proactive and, take care of myself and stay stimulated.
Wonderful. Regina, how about you?
We did a family game night on Friday night where, I've got kids that are living here right now at 25, 24, and 18. We never get their time because what free time they have, obviously they spend with their peers, but now they're stuck with mom and dad. So we had them make dinner. So they made a nacho bar, and we went through and made our own nachos. And then after dinner, we played board games and things. And I think they want game night to be once a week now. I don't think they would want it 5 nights a week, but it's memories that making the best of a bad situation, trying to turn some good. Meditation, a nice long hot bath where you're not in a hurry to get out. Because, you got to get to bed because you got to get up early in the morning, things like that. So, I really, really miss some things that I used to go and get my hair done. I miss my nail gel and all those things. I'm sure are small businesses too,
Yeah, I have to admit, I feel really bad for the restaurant workers, hair salon, nail people, right? Really bad. Housekeepers, although my housekeeper still comes in once a week. I mean, I'm okay with her coming in. She's okay with coming in, but maybe that isn't allowed, but
we won't tell.
I do feel bad for these people because a lot of times that's it. I mean, they're the and they're not, whatever. It is what it is. I feel bad. I just feel my heart just breaks for.
Your profit margins are not large, so it's a decrease in income for them is really tough. I mean, it's tough for everybody, but
it's just tough for everybody. So.
I went to see my OB 2 weeks ago, and he's only seeing pregnant patients over 10 weeks. Those are the only patients. There's 7 OBs in the practice. It's an entire floor of a building in Beverly Hills. And to see my OB so defeated, and because he was asking me what I was doing and how I was doing in terms of my business, and he said to get 7 OBs to agree about, the staff situation at the office, who to furlough, who not to furlough. He had tears in his eyes. And I left that appointment and I was just like, oh my God, this is really happening. And, a friend of mine had a C-section last week and the doctor canceled her appointment to check her incision. He said, if you're worried, send me a picture. I mean, it's like things are really changing, and it's affecting everyone, every business, everyone is affected, every family. And it is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking all around, some more than others. And, how many for lease signs are we going to see on restaurants and small businesses, in the upcoming months? How many people, are paycheck to paycheck that can't survive this? So it's going to be a tough recovery.
Those are our pain. In many instances, the people that work in those industries are patients. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, the hard part is everyone is in it together, but the good part is we're all in it together. And I've seen, more people supporting small businesses who never used to support them previously. And I just hope when this is all over, we can all remember that and we can continue to support the small businesses and, order takeout from the local mom and pop place, or, not the go pick up the McDonald's. Sorry, McDonald's, but, work with those small businesses and really support each other, because I think that that's something that's special that can come out of this, is the togetherness and the community that can come out of this. And so we are all in it together, which is a terrible thing, but at least we're all in it together, One last thing I want to ask you guys. What is a show, a movie, a book that you just love or you're binging on that you want to share?
well, I can tell you something I watched, and I won't say I loved it, but so many people were talking about it, I had to see it, was The Tiger King.
Okay.
And that was like watching a wreck that you can't take your eyes off of.
Do you know they're doing a bonus episode because it did so well? They're taking the extra footage and making another episode.
Really?
Oh my God.
I could not believe that there are really people out there that strange.
Yeah,
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, don't get started. We started it, and I just was like, "Oh my God, I can't take this." But I can say Heist, Heist, Heist.
Okay.
It's on Netflix. It's from Spain. So they do. The actress used
It's
to be
so good.
Spanish. Have you seen it?
I have.
It's
It's like they just put out season 3 or 4 or something,
more.
right?
It is
So
addicting.
good.
It's addicting. If you want to watch something and really binge, I'm telling you, start with season 1. The other one to watch is Ozark.
I was going to say Ozark. We just
Yeah.
did season 3 and it was
Unbelievable.
fantastic.
It's fantastic, right? Oh
I
my
love
God.
it.
So you kind of get the idea of the kind of shows I like, but yeah.
They're dark.
They're kind of,
but the acting
it's
is
kind of like
phenomenal in Ozark.
it's kind of like people doing like, it's kind of like, you think about it, like Ozark, right? That he's like an accountant that's money laundering, and you kind of like are on his side. But it's like a totally illegal
Yes,
thing.
you're totally on his
Right?
side.
And then in Heist, well, it's kind of the same thing. They just robbed a bank, but you really want them to succeed, So it's kind of like, I don't understand
Nice
myself.
bank robbers.
It's really interesting. It's good stuff.
I also just read, I've been into memoirs. So I read The Sound of Gravel, which is a really good memoir. I'm forgetting the author. And I just read Tara Westover's Educated,
So
which
good.
is also a memoir. Yeah, they're both really good, really interesting. It's about people overcoming challenges, really. Like if you look at their upbringing and what they become. So something uplifting at a time like this.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
One book series I really like. I like historical fiction, and Patricia Gregory has a series of books that are written about the queens of England and the women in the monarchy from the woman's perspective, and what it was
Very
like to be
cool.
married to the king, what you had to give up, and all the rules you had to follow, and different things. And it's, I think a series of maybe 8 or 9 books, and it's addicting. So be careful if you start that.
Okay. I love
And
it.
also make sure you start it at the beginning.
Okay.
One builds on the next.
Okay. I love historical fiction. I'm with you. I just love it. And I do like memoirs. So I'm writing these books down.
Awesome. Good. Well, good. You guys all just gave me a little something to preoccupy my time with. So thank you. And I can't thank the 3 of you enough for, Zooming with me and doing our little happy hour. This was wonderful. It was great to see all of your faces. And I think you really shared some wonderful information with the orthodontic community. So thank you. I think this will be very helpful for everybody. And hopefully I'll see you next week for a happy hour.
You bet. Good night.
Bye.
Good night,
Thank you all.